Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Colleen Baker. I am a producer here at the Houston Chronicle. I want to make sure, is everyone able to see my screen? We have some instructions on how to turn on your closed captioning. So let me know in the comments if you can go ahead and see them. Also, as the comments start to roll in, I want to take a second to quickly introduce our panelists. We have Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia. We have UH professors Anna Cabot and Daniel Morales. And we also have Jennifer Canales-Pelaez, and she is a lawyer at the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. Obviously, Anna and Daniel represent U of H in the Law Center there. And we will get started in a few seconds. I want to make sure you all can hear me. But in the meantime, let us know, drop in the comments below where you're tuning in from in Houston, if you're in Montrose, if you are in the Heights, if you are in DC, like Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia right now, or if you are in North Houston, like Jennifer is. And we want to make sure that everyone can hear us and has the options of turning on their captions. So, bienvenidos a todos. I'm going to say this in English and Spanish a little bit as we get started. Si estás en el webinar, puedes ver ahí abajo el botón que dice C, ese quiere indicar que es closed captioning. Puedes escoger tu idioma preferida. Si quieres escuchar todo esto, la información en español, puedes elegir tu idioma preferida. Y ahorita ya pueden empezar a mandarnos tus preguntas. Si tienes una pregunta para los profesores, Ana o Daniel, o si tienes una pregunta legal para Jennifer o para Sylvia Garcia, por favor, mándanos las preguntas y podemos tratar de responder a todos. All right, so if everyone got that, we are obviously going to be taking questions in the last 30 minutes of the event. We have some prepared questions from Codell, our public safety editor, and we will get to it.
But I think the point I was trying to make is that the costs for this program have never been budgeted. And so they're basically taking money from other agencies, and that's one of the reasons that they're doing the freeze on all the federal grants, for example, and trying to cut so many programs that really help people because they need money for this. And I think it's really going to, it's a double hit for people because you're going to be, cutting Head Start or potentially not providing Medicaid funding to states, food programs, because this is a very expensive venture. Again, the number that I quoted is that it's they're going to need about 24 times more ICE detention officers. And just to detain, process, house, and then deport, it's $88 billion. That's with a B, to deport 1 million people. And as the professor said, they're trying to do what's called expedited removal for some. But that's only some, because not everybody can be removed by expedited processing. They've got to go through due process. People think that you can just go get somebody out of a car, put them on the bus, and send them back. That's what the average person, I think, thinks is the process. That is not the case. They have rights. They've got due process. We have to determine whether or not there really are immigrants, because this whole idea that the president actually talks about, that he can look at someone and tell if they're legal or not, or whether they're troublemakers or not, is just ludicrous. I can look at all 5 of you right now, and I don't know which one of you is a citizen or not, and just by looking at you. So that's going to lead to a lot of problems. Americans are going to get picked up. People that have been in this country for years are going to get picked up. So families will be hurt. And before it's over, y'all, we're going to see images of those horrible cages with little babies in them. And that's not America. That's not who we are. it's not anything anybody wants to see, that it's just immoral. And, I'm fighting back every step of the way.
Well, to go back, because I think folks may have missed this part. Um, could we talk about a little bit about who is exactly being targeted right now? Because uh, Congresswoman, as you mentioned before, I think a lot of people feel like, well, they're just going after people with criminal warrants, or they're just going after criminals. Is that who is being detained right now? And this is open to anyone.
I can jump in on that.
Yeah, of course.
I think, as Anna sort of earlier characterized, the big shift is you only have so much capacity to deport people, right? As Rep. Garcia was mentioning, it's a very difficult exercise. There is always legal process attached to it of some form, even an expedited removal. And so there's only so much capacity. And so normally administrations prioritize different groups, right? If this administration were very serious about getting rid of the very few people who have serious criminal records in the United States that and are also immigrants, they would focus on all their resources on that group, but that's not their strategy. Their strategy is to withdraw the standards that prioritized groups. So if you've been here, by the way, the average undocumented person has been here 15 years or more. And so you don't prioritize those people, you prioritize people with criminal records. They've withdrawn that because they want everyone to be afraid. I was also looking back at statistics, and it's important to note in the prior Trump administration, they never had more than half of their deported population in a single year that actually had criminal records. Not right. So there were always most or at least half were deported simply with civil infractions for violations of the immigration laws. These are not the hardened criminals that are being portrayed, and the administration's strategy is to scare everyone and make it more random and arbitrary who gets deported.
Yeah, and I just want to also just piggyback on that, unfortunately, we have seen just a widespread of anti-immigrant rhetoric that has spread across our political spectrum. And, as Professor Morales was saying, despite, the widespread evidence that crime is down, right, that the immigrants actually enhance public safety and the safety within our communities, we have policy lawmakers that are accepting the targeting of immigrants and criminalizing of immigrants as the premise, right? And somehow that's going to make us safe. We know that that is not. As advocates, we know that ICE routinely fails to meet congressionally required reporting in order to have full transparency. Unfortunately, we have seen many, many examples of agents engaging in unconstitutional practices and violating human rights. As our Congresswoman said, we've seen just in these last few weeks, stories of U.S. citizens, veterans being looped into this, right? So we're discovering that it's not as targeted as they're saying, right? It's really just a mask to target and really root out the people that they think don't belong here. And I think we have to be really honest with ourselves about that. And I think it's also really important to clarify that ICE is not a public safety agency. They run detention centers. They deport children. They regularly disrupt the criminal process, right, and have designated immigration enforcement in order to maximize detention, right? They're continuously trying to seep into the criminal legal system, right, and push people through this different system, right? So just to keep that in the back of our minds, right, that as we're getting all this propaganda shoved down our throats, right, that we should be scared of these people, we really should be questioning and thinking, like, why now? What about this time is different? And if you look historically, it's not.
Well, that's what I just said, because I want to actually move into that. And Congresswoman, you might be able to give us a kind of a first go at this question. But I kind of want to ask about like the historical context of this. And what has happened in the past that can give us an idea of kind of like what is going on now?
Well, I think,
Whether it be like the past 20, 30 years, whenever.
well, it's, I took immigration law in law school, but that's been a while. And it amazes me that there's so much confusion. There's so many myths out there and just flat out lies about what immigration law is and isn't. And we have to start with the whole notion that immigration law is, as Jennifer just pointed out, is it's civil. But they talk about it as a crime and they're criminals. No, there's a system for that already, and it's called 287G. The prisoner comes through the jail and they go through a process of they're asking them where they're from, and if our ICE can identify them through another system called secured communities, and they put a detainer on that person, and they, as soon as that person is getting ready to get out of jail, they call ICE and they're picked up. So they want to go after criminals. There's already something kind of in place with that. I was stunned last week when Abbott announced that he was signing an executive order, I think it was to have DPS task force of some sort to assist in arresting some of these criminals. It's like, wait a minute, why did you have to wait till this happened to go after criminals that have warrants? You should have been doing that for the last 10 years since you've been governor and you've had Operation Lone Star. So historically, I think there's never been this kind of state like Texas, Florida's, a lot of the states are passing laws, and many of them who want to be seen as good team players are passing laws now to allow their police officers to act as immigration officers, because those cities and states that didn't are now being accused of being sanctuary cities. So it's like, I think, I think you'll remember the sheriff from Arizona and SB 70, and that started a lot of this, the racial profiling and pulling people. So I think we're in a situation where, I just came from a press conference with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. I'm the sponsor of the DREAM Act, and probably Dreamers are probably the most liked group of people in the group of immigrants generally. 80% of the country adults support Dreamers, but they think everybody else is what Donald Trump and the Republicans have been able to paint, criminals, and the words that they use are it's just horrible. So I think we're going to have to just keep pushing back and recognize that they contribute a lot to our economy, whether it's the food they help put on the table or the work that they did during the pandemic to keeping us all safe, to just being, good community people. They're by and large, I think Professor Morales, what number did you quote that are not criminal?
Oh,
In terms of immigrants?
I mean, the vast, vast majority, 90 something.
And we looked at the numbers, Codell, of the people that have been deported. Almost half are not criminals.
Yes.
They're
That's
like that grandfather in Chicago, or that veteran Puerto Rican in I think it was Newark or New York. That's who they are. So again, they're lying to us. So the history is not good, especially under Trump before, and that's what I'm afraid of, that they're going to push the envelope to the point where we are going to see kids in cages. I know during the little break that I had this morning, I was following up on a report of school buses, maybe stopped. I say maybe because I haven't verified all the facts yet, at checkpoints in Texas, and they're going to board the buses and question the children. Now, that is beyond the pale, because the guideline that we used to use and had, but Trump administration has reversed it, where we have safe places, sensitive places in our communities, like schools, churches, hospitals, gathering places. Those should continue to be safe, and ICE would not go there. Trump has reversed that. So that's putting fear in children, and children are not going to school. They were targeting parents at drop off and the carpool line. But now stopping buses and going on board and harassing kids. I mean, how many kids do you know that walk around with a passport in their pocket? They can't even keep their pen and pencil and book straight to get to school because they seem to lose everything. So I'm just really appalled by every single executive order and new guideline that he's proposing.
So one thing I want to move to next, because I think a lot of people have kind of tuned in to hear this. I want to skip ahead a bit, and I want to just talk about the basics of what advice you would give people in the country with or without legal permission, and as far as like interacting with ICE during raids or individual arrests, what advice would you give them? And I'm not sure if our captions are going, pero si this is for Jennifer. ¿Qué puedes decir a los inmigrantes sobre sobre ICE? I'm sorry, my Spanish isn't perfect.
No worries. Sí, rápidamente solo quiero decir que todas las personas que nos encontramos dentro de los Estados Unidos, no importa nuestra situación migratoria, con que estemos en los Estados Unidos, la Constitución nos da derechos. A pesar que la oposición quiere decir que no y quiere criminalizar lo que estamos haciendo ahorita, que es educar a las personas sobre sus derechos, esto es lo más legal que uno puede hacer, ¿ok? Los derechos que tenemos son 3 y son básicos, ¿ok? La primera es mantener y guardar el silencio. Eso es muy importante. Muchas veces nosotros pensamos, si no debemos, no hay nada que temer, ¿verdad? Pero desafortunadamente muchas veces es con nuestras mismas palabras que nosotros damos la evidencia para que luego nosotros estemos arrestados, ¿ok? La mayor parte del tiempo que ICE llega a la puerta de la persona no tienen ningún derecho legal de estar ahí. Y si a veces mienten y tratan de usar diferentes maneras de tratar de sacar a la gente de sus casas porque saben que no están ahí con el derecho legal, ¿ok? Número 1, mantener el silencio. Número 2, el decirle no a la registración de su persona, de su vehículo, de su propiedad. No se puede entrar sin una orden judicial firmada por un juez. Y la tercera es que todas las personas tenemos el derecho de un abogado criminal, pero para asuntos de inmigración, desafortunadamente, no tenemos el derecho de uno gratis. Tenemos que pagar por uno. Eso es muy importante. 3 cosas básicas, rápidas. Y si a las personas se les olvidan, como dijo la congresista hace un rato, tenemos tarjetas rojas de sus derechos que dicen, y ustedes les pueden dar esos a los oficiales si se les olvida, puede ser una herramienta extra. Exactamente, como está enseñando ahorita la representante, eso es un ejemplo de las tarjetas de sus derechos. So I can just repeat that in English really quickly. In the United States, everyone, irrespective of the immigration status, has rights. And the congresswoman right now is showing us an example of a Know Your Rights card, which it is, first of all, not illegal for us to give out because we are literally educating you on your constitutional rights. So the fact that the opposition is misconstruing this is proof to us that it's working. So keep asserting your rights. And they are. Number 1, the right to remain silent. This is going to be the golden rule because a lot of times folks think that if I don't owe anything, why should I fear anything? I can help, right? A lot of the times it is us with our own words that we give information that can later lead to an arrest. Most of the time, ICE does not have a warrant. Most of the time, ICE is just going indiscriminately and arresting people. So very important, assert your right to remain silent. Number two, say no to the searches of your person, your vehicle, your property. The only way that ICE law enforcement can enter your home, search your person or your vehicle is with a signed judicial warrant. And then lastly, we all have the right to a free criminal attorney. Unfortunately, the Constitution does not give us the right for a free immigration lawyer, but important to ask for a lawyer and to assert that right as well.
As far as people who are not targeted, whether it be neighbors who are seeing neighbors being detained, or what advice would you give them?
I can step in here.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, so I think everyone needs to have their own individual risk assessment. You know, how willing are you to get involved, not involved, right? And everyone should kind of learn and figure out what their place is. It is your right to record law enforcement, to record ICE doing their activities. You can't interfere, right, with what's going on, but it is your right, right? You can record, you can ask questions about what's happening. They might get agitated and you might need to de-escalate. But again, this is why if you choose to act in this way, you really need to do a safety plan for yourself, for your family, and have your own plan in order in case you may be arrested. But I'll pass the mic to another panelist if there's other additions.
Well, actually, I was going to say that before we go, I'll pass off to Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia. I know you have another commitment. So if you want to add anything to what Jennifer just said, or if we should say our goodbyes right now, you please take the floor for a second and let us know anything else.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And I was just going to underscore what Jennifer said. We really do encourage people to just, say nothing. And if they approach their door, they need to know that they don't have to let them in. Just like they can't get in your car. I mean, without a order or a search warrant signed by a judge, sometimes they'll have something signed by immigration. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about from a judge from your courthouse. We do have the cards, as Jennifer said, in English and Spanish. If anybody wants to call my office, it's 832-325-3150. And we also have a toolkit with almost everything I talked about, with flyers on, what should you do if they go to your office? What do you do if they come to your home? So it's a lot of question and answer, because it is about making sure that we educate everyone about this. And again, we're not trying to tell you not to cooperate. We're not trying to tell you what to do. If you need to, consult your own lawyer. So thank you again for having me. And it's a pleasure to meet all the panel members. Hopefully I'll see you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will absolutely be having another one of these events, and we'll have hopefully Congresswoman Garcia back, and we'll continue to cover her events as she's also talking about this topic ongoing as well. And actually, I think we have a couple of minutes for some reader questions. So I want to make sure that we get to some of them. We'll say our goodbyes to Sylvia Garcia right now. And I actually want to ask the first question probably to Anna and Daniel. Daniel, I think this is your bread and butter, but we have someone asking about Guantanamo. And I know that's a very loaded question, but I know obviously history in this area plays a key role. And they're asking if Congress can do anything actively right now from sending people to Guantanamo. Can you give us kind of some nutshell of a question kind of answer to that?
Sure. I mean, Guantanamo has a very ambiguous legal status and a very complicated legal status. I think the way I would approach those claims is that there simply isn't that much capacity existing in the facilities in Guantanamo. And so I would be somewhat skeptical of their ability to sort of ramp up what they do there quickly. That said, of course, it's a place over which they have jurisdiction, and there's very more limited supervision and rights. I think the use of Guantanamo is a way of furthering actually the symbolic meaning of immigration, because so much of what we've been talking about is trying to make us all scared of immigrants who are in fact just a part of our communities like any other of our neighbors. And so by talking about using Guantanamo, that just accelerates. Well, who was housed at Guantanamo? It was terrorists, right? Immigrants aren't terrorists. I think the Cato Institute, the conservative Cato Institute, did a study of your likelihood of being killed by a foreign terrorist, and it's in the 0.0001%, something of that order of magnitude. But the use of Guantanamo is this rhetorical flourish, I think, more than anything substantive, even if, of course, it does happen. I mean, I'm not saying they're not going to do it, right? I'm just saying that that's one of the harder things to ramp up.
Daniel, if I can jump in just for a second, real quick, I just wanted to ask one to add on to that. But in the early '90s, I believe that during the Haitian refugee crisis, Haitians were kept in Guantanamo, and they were refugees, not these weren't criminals. These were actually just people fleeing a crisis.
That's absolutely right. Anna, I think, wanted to address that.
Yeah, no, I think I actually also wanted to make that point in terms of historical context. This is not new. I mean, in the kind of common parlance of Guantanamo, we think about detained enemies. We think about the terrorists who were detained there, are detained there. But as Codell said, during the 90s, during the Haitian refugee crisis, many Haitians who were interdicted at sea, basically caught, were held in Guantanamo Bay before being returned to Haiti, often to hideous danger, like incredibly mistreated. And what I hear, I would agree normally that it would be difficult to take a place which apparently has the detention capacity of 120 total currently and house 30,000 people, which is they're promising. On the other hand, what they're talking about is putting people in tents at Guantanamo, which is a lot easier than putting them in permanent facilities. So I think the speed at which they're going to be able to put people there is maybe faster than we would otherwise anticipate. And yet, if we go back and talk to people who are representing the people, the terrorists, it was incredibly hard to get people to be able to have legal representation at Guantanamo because of this ambiguous legal footing that it has, and because of the security clearance required to access it, because of the military control over it.
Yeah, what Anna's saying is absolutely correct. I mean, I guess the other thing, though, to think about, right, is that it's also hard to get immigration lawyers to Dilley, Texas. And it's also hard. I mean, and this is why I sort of am focused on, yes, they're going to do that. Is it the thing that's most tractable for us to be doing stuff about? I'm not sure. But I'll stop there.
I mean, if I can add just to that, I feel like what is missing and what has been missing a lot is just acknowledging just the increased use of the criminal legal system to criminalize our folks here. Like, we don't even have to think about Guantanamo. We can think about the expansion of detention here in Houston. Here in Houston, it's rumored that they want to build a new jail and they're touting it as an A+ prison. But what is an A+ prison, right? Like, a lot of the things that they want to include in this prison, like access to mental health services, Why are we paying for people to go to jail to access mental health services? That is insane, right? Like we're wasting money and resources on things. For example, with Operation Lone Star, $11 billion since 2021 has gone down the drain. We as Houstonians have felt the impact of the militarization of our borders, of the funneling of resources to the border. We just had unprecedented natural disasters last year. Hurricane Beryl, which was what, a category 1, maybe 2 hurricane, felt like a category 4 or 5 because people were left without water, without access to electricity during one of the hottest months of the year for weeks. Now tell me, how does that make us safer? So I think we really need to be critical when we are hearing all this rhetoric about something is happening far, far away. No, Texas is ground zero. Texas has been doing this. Texas has made its own system to where folks on the border can say that traffic citations have gone up by 1,000% since the inception of Operation Lone Star. People that have lived there for years, for generations, are now being stopped over 1,000% more than before, right? Border residents have witnessed deaths and violence as a result of high-speed chases, ironically, by the Department of Public Safety. So like we don't even have to think about, obviously we think about Guantanamo and what's happening, but like we also have the energy and can do things here to stop this.
We have a question come in. Actually, I think I'm going to ask Anna. In terms of asylum, is there a difference between birthright citizens and naturalized citizens? And also, someone is even asking about children in asylum in that context. Can you give us some information about how that plays out?
Sure. Excuse me. There's a big difference between birthright citizens and naturalized citizens. Birthright citizenship has been around since the 14th Amendment. It was kind of re-emphasized in a Supreme Court decision in the 1880s that birthright citizenship, in the sense that if someone is born on US soil, they are a US citizen, with very, very few exceptions. Exceptions specifically around the children of like diplomats. So really a handful, less than 100, something very small. So that's birthright citizenship. Your birth takes place on US soil, you are a US citizen. Naturalized citizenship comes as someone who at one point was not a US citizen, has become a legal permanent resident through a family petition, through employment, through asylum, through some legal immigration pathway, has continued to be a legal permanent resident for the required amount of time, has not picked up any kind of criminal issues that would forbid it, or moral turpitude issues that would forbid it, and applies to become a US citizen because they've checked all the boxes required by the US immigration legal system. And they apply for citizenship, they apply to be naturalized, they take an oath, and they become a US citizen. So that's a very, very different systems. There was a question about, jump in, Daniel.
Oh, no, I was just going to say on the birthright citizenship point, it actually goes back even farther than the 14th Amendment. All the 14th Amendment did was extend birthright citizenship beyond white people, right? And overruled Dred Scott, because actually the birthright citizenship rule has been the rule the whole time in the United States because we inherited it from the English crown. So just wanted to reemphasize that. But go ahead on asylum, I think was the question, Anna.
I'm not sure what the question was about children and asylum.
Yeah, just if it affected children differently in terms of, what to do if a child is stopped without parental supervision in any account, that can be a whole array of issues that come up from that. But we have about 2 minutes left, so I know that's not necessarily a simple answer.
It isn't a simple answer. I think, in fact, Jennifer might have more to say about that specifically. There are an array of kind of specific protections for children who are seeking asylum to try and make the system more humane for them in that process. but they're not very easy to kind of like elaborate here. I don't know if Jennifer, if you have anything to kind of add about.
Yes, and Jennifer, actually, a few
Specifically
people are
right
also
now.
asking how they can get those multiple copies of the red card as well that Sylvia was showing. If you could touch on that one more time, that would be great.
Yes, so I can start with that one. So if you visit our website, irlrc.org, and type in red cards, the page where you can actually download them for free is available. There's several languages. We've unfortunately seen people selling the red cards. Do not buy them. It's a free resource. We will give you the link. You can download them and print them at home for free. Like, do not buy them, right? So that's number one. We are back ordered, so we do recommend printing them at home with different PDFs that is on that link. And then I think just generally regarding ICE and their interactions with children, like as I mentioned a little bit earlier, ICE is an agency that has routinely shown its true colors by routinely failing to work within the purviews of their congressional restrictions. So it is not unheard of that ICE can question a child without a parent there. So I think it is really important for us as educators, parents, family members to really have conversations with our children, with our family members about not opening the door, right? About not saying anything and calling your parent or whoever the designated person is immediately, and to remain silent, which is the main thing. We have seen lots of tricks that ICE likes to pull on people. So that's why we just like to emphasize that silence is golden for everyone involved.
And on that note, that's putting us right at time. Again, first and foremost, I want to thank the panelists. I know, taking time out of their schedule, as well as Codell, of course, our editor of public safety. Thank you all for being here. Thank you again to Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia as well. We are recording all of this session. We will have a version up on YouTube, most likely without the technical difficulties, but I apologize for all of that. Obviously, live Zooms are another world, but we will absolutely try and obviously have a redo, as well as have follow-up content with Anna, Daniel, and Jennifer as well, that may be off Zoom as well. So the conversation is just starting and kind of continuing, but we will absolutely be covering it at HoustonChronicle.com. Also go to the websites Jennifer was mentioning, as well as Anna and Daniel. We will send all of the follow-up information for people to continue the conversation. So thank you all so much again, and have a great and safe day. Thank you, guys.